Hi, everybody. I had a few quick comments on a uh, podcast, webcast title that I just saw coming across my feed. And the name of that topic was Is American Freedom Dangerous? And, here's my response to that. It's like, I don't know if I would use the word dangerous. And if I were, it will be in the proper context. And let me give the proper context. All right. So you think about American freedom. All right. Well, you have to think about America's foundation, and this is not up for debate. This is just it's a fact that America was founded on Judeo-Christian morals, Judeo-Christian ethics. How do we know that? Well, because up until probably the last 20 years, what did it say on all the dollar bills or money and coins? It said, "In God we trust." In God we trust. So that Judeo-Christian ethic, if you will, that morality started from the top down. You got to really get the sequence of this in order to answer the question about is American freedom dangerous? Because one could say freedom is dangerous. But here's the deal. There's a formula to this. There's a method to the madness, if you will. It's like, okay, here's the deal. In God we trust. So in order to deal with this thing that we call freedom, we have to start at the beginning. In God we trust. All right? And then I like to think about, okay, well, what else is super foundational to the American credo? Well, obviously, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Why is that like that? Why is that so super important to adhere to that formula? Okay, well, here you have in God we trust. Then you have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, why does life come after God? Well, because in the Judeo-Christian ethic, what does it say? Most people know this, is that men and women, children, human beings were made in the image of God. And therefore, men and women and babies and from conception, every cell of the human body, every part of the human body, every part of the human existence, yes, and from conception and beyond, is sacred and precious. If in God we trust and we hold God in the most high reverence, in meaning that God is the most sacred and precious thing, that anything created by God is also sacred and precious. In other words, life is precious. Life is precious, and Americans have always been dedicated to the preservation of life. That's where, that's why Americans have sacrificed themselves since the beginning to preserve the life of other people. Well, of course, people will say, well, why are we fighting this war? Why are we fighting that war? Or why are we present over there trying to help people who don't want to be helped or whatever? Because people's lives are being taken. People are being degraded and treated like animals, enslaved. So America has a huge commitment to the preservation of life and that all people be treated with as sacred and precious. Now, there's life, liberty. So what is liberty? Liberty is not freedom. A lot of people think liberty is freedom. No, you're wrong. You're not seeing that from the right perspective. You have to think about liberty like imagine, sailors on a boat. In order for them to leave the boat and be free to leave, if you will, and to enjoy, other things, to leave the boat, what do they need? They need to be granted liberty. What is liberty? Liberty is authority granted or permission granted from a greater authority. Permission granted from a greater authority. Nobody leaves the boat without first getting liberty. Otherwise, you're arrested. Nobody grants themselves the freedom to leave the boat. It only comes through liberty, permission granted from a greater authority. And greater authority doesn't grant permission to be free to just anyone. It only grants permission to be free to those who have demonstrated what? Those qualities and attributes that are godlike, if you will, that support life and the preciousness and sacredness of life. There's also embedded in that the humility that comes with understanding that as human beings, we did not bring ourselves into life. We did not give birth to ourselves. We did not weave together our genetics and it ourselves. That life itself is sacred and precious. Our life is sacred and precious, and it for us generates extreme gratitude and appreciation because we did not grant ourselves this life. We did not give ourselves life. We were given life. In God we trust. We are made in the image of God. We didn't make ourselves. So we were given opportunity to this great thing called life, not of our own efforts. And so that is the beginning of the great love story. That is the beginning of appreciation and gratitude. And when one feels great appreciation and gratitude, one becomes of service to that which is greater. And so when you can demonstrate that submission to that which is greater, then of course that authority will grant liberty. And now we're free to pursue. We're free to pursue what we want to pursue. But you see, here's where the question gets answered. And this is the reality of what's going on right now and has been very predominantly for the last 4 or 5 decades. 6 decades now, since hardcore, since the 60s. And what is that? Is that people want freedom, but they don't want the liberty piece and they don't want the God piece. They just want to be free to do what they want to do. And anybody who's watched what's going on in society today knows that there's just an extreme level of narcissism and entitlement and indulgence going on in our society right now. And that's what happens when people reject that formula. In God we trust, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But people are rejecting that other piece. They are rejecting liberty. They're rejecting God, but they want the freedom. That's no different than some immature little kid, preteen who wants adult freedoms without the responsibility. Some entitled little brat. They would love nothing more than to have their cake and eat it too. That's the Peter Pan syndrome. So is American freedom dangerous? Only if disconnected from those foundational pillars that our founders put in place for our own good. Anytime we as human beings pursue something sacred and precious, there is a level of risk that goes with it. And that risk can only be mitigated through love. And that is the great love story. In God we trust. So there you have it.